Hi, my name is Keele, and I'm the founder and CEO of Virtual Startup Academy, and I'm here today in my hometown of Canyon Lake, California, to talk to you about all the awesome stuff we're doing at Virtual Startup Academy and how we're going to change the world of education. What is my background in education? Well, I started out as a young child, and my mom did an amazing job of getting me focused in school and teaching me reading and all the other things that we have to learn as young kids. And I went through elementary school and was a great student, and got through middle school and into high school, and kind of flattened out at the beginning of high school. I became more interested in football and baseball and girls, of course, and my grades kind of suffered. And then about halfway through high school, I really got serious, and I jumped my GPA up to 4.0 plus. Started studying for all of the standardized tests you have to take, the SAT and the ACT, and managed to get myself into Claremont McKenna College, which I was really excited about. It was the best school that I went to, and I studied economics there, played college football, and really had a great time. I wasn't the best student, and I wasn't the brightest student there, of course, but I managed to get through, and I became an entrepreneur right after I graduated, and did that for a couple of years, and started coaching football, and that was where my passion was. It wasn't in starting companies to make money with businesses. It was hanging out with kids and teaching them amazing things that they could use for the rest of their lives. So I coached football for a couple years, and they got me to become a substitute teacher. And I did that in Fontana, California for a couple years, and went back to Azusa Pacific University to get my credential in business. And I ended up getting a master's degree in learning and technology there as well. And I got a job at California Virtual Academies, which was a really amazing opportunity because it was the only school in California that was teaching entrepreneurship. And that was what excited me, because I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I knew that teaching economics was kind of a lost cause because I didn't have a social science credential. So went to work at California Virtual Academies and started teaching entrepreneurship. And it was a really exciting time because finally I got to talk about all the things that I was passionate about and believed in, and the kids loved it. We did amazing things with writing business plans, and there's a ton of great content that we had, and that was the experience I had. And a couple years into that, I decided that I needed to get a CTE credential so that I could broaden my horizons. And I went back to Cal State San Bernardino and got myself a CTE credential, two of them actually, in marketing, service and sales, and business and finance. So now I was a credentialed teacher in the CTE area. And it just so happens that my school started the Destinations Career Academy that year. So 2 days after I got a CTE credential, I had a job at the DCA at California Virtual Academies, and that's when everything started to take off. We started getting trained in project-based learning about 3 or 4 months into the school year, and I hated it, and it was awful, and I didn't understand why we were doing it, but I stuck around. And then COVID hit, and we made it through the semester, and I came back and really just connected with the project-based learning content and started putting together these amazing classes, and that's where basically my career took off. Why did I create Virtual Startup Academy? Well, I was sitting in class in fall of 2020. My kids were having a great time. We had just started a project on how to launch an event and raise money for a startup, and they were really connecting with the material. They were excited to come to class. They were excited to be around each other, even though we were in a virtual environment. And they were excited about the material that they were producing on their own. And I was sitting back one day, and I thought, I need to be able to reach more kids than I have right now. I need to be able to reach more than 75 kids in a semester because everyone in the country needs to have access to this. So I got to work. I started writing my own curriculum. I started talking to other teachers and business owners. And I created what we have today, which is now called Virtual Startup Academy. And I took all the things that I learned from my classes throughout the years, especially in the last year, and I really wanted to make something that kids were excited about and wanted to come to class so they could learn how to change the world. And that's what we do. That's why I created Virtual Startup Academy, because kids are awesome. I love teaching kids. I love hanging out with kids. And I love it when I see the look in their eyes when they realize that this work that they're doing in my class, they're going to use for the rest of their life. And they can go out, change the world if they want to. And I don't see that anywhere else in education. I didn't see that anywhere in my own education. And I've talked to a lot of teachers across the country. And what I put together is what I wanted when I was a kid. That's what we're doing at Virtual Startup Academy. That's why I created it. And it's all about the kids. It's all about giving students who maybe aren't meant to go to college, or maybe are meant to go to college and are looking for something more interesting. But at the end of the day, it's about how do we teach the kids the skills and the experience they need to change the world and make the world a better place. How does Virtual Startup Academy change education? Well, we all know what education was like when we were in school. And it's still like that today. Teachers give lectures, and they prepare graded assignments, and they create tests that are supposed to measure learning. And maybe we do labs in science that are project-based. Maybe we have various little projects here and there, but at the end of the day, the learning experience in school today and for the last 100 years has been around the teacher and how the teacher is able to convey information and teach the students. And we just totally flip that upside down. We take the classroom as it exists today, and we do something completely different. We believe that students should be the focus of the educational experience. We believe that students should be teaching each other. And we believe students are smart enough to do that. Because based on my experience and my observations in the classroom, this is 100% the case. So that's why we are Virtual Startup Academy. That's why we are different. Because we trust students and we empower students to do the things that they want to do. We don't make it about how much education the teacher has or the fancy pedagogy that the teacher is able to portray onto the classroom. We make it about the students becoming excited to come to school. We make it about the students being excited to teach each other the awesome stuff they know and to reach out into the world and find the answers themselves and to teach those answers that they found to their fellow classmates. Because one thing I've learned in education is students remember a lot of what us teachers tell them, but they remember everything that they teach each other. And that specific factor is everything to us, because we want students to work together and we want students to help each other learn how to change the world. How do I describe the courses we created at Virtual Startup Academy? Well, unlike other educational programs, all our courses are designed around kids working together. They're around kids working together to solve problems in the real world. They're designed around kids learning how to be a part of their community and solving problems for the people in their community that maybe can't solve them themselves. We have entrepreneurship courses and we have auxiliary courses. In our entrepreneurship courses, students take a social entrepreneurship role. They start off and they find a cause that they believe in. Maybe it's a nonprofit, maybe it's a local charity, and they come up with an event to raise money for that cause. They go through the entire process of how to put together an event and how to carry out all the tasks and the budgeting and the marketing and everything that goes into it. It's something they've never done in school before. And then they move on and they go to their school. At their school, there are tons of different organizations and clubs and groups and sports teams. We want our students to work with these groups and teams and figure out how to raise money for them, how to create comprehensive fundraising plans for these groups that really don't have the skills or potentially the booster clubs to make it happen. Lots of programs in public schools and private schools do not have booster clubs that are sufficient enough to raise the funds they need. So we're going to create groups and teams that are going to help these organizations and groups inside the school figure this out. On the for-profit end, kids are going to start off learning how to start a small business or with a service or a product. This is designed to be something they can actually do, something they can do after school to raise money, to earn money, and to learn how to be business owners. They will move on to the management consulting role, where we'll go out into the community and we will find small businesses that need help with whatever aspects of business they have. A big thing with us as community, as we've talked about before. And we want students to be able to contribute to their community in a way that makes a meaningful impact. Small businesses are up against so much, especially post-COVID. Many have gone out of business, others are struggling, and the large corporations are coming into our towns and they are taking over the commerce. So we want to give small businesses teams of students who are able to think critically about these problems, who are able to invest time into figuring out how to make their business better. Because small business owners are busy running their business. They don't always have time to work to make themselves better. So we're going to fill that gap for them. Furthermore, we also have courses in visual design and videography, where students can learn how to create marketing materials and advertisements, and can learn how to properly record videos and YouTube channels and product design materials and all the other things that they need in order to successfully market their business. We also have a class in IT where students learn how to set up networks for their businesses. They set up Microsoft Teams tenants and Office tenants so that they can connect all the different people in their company, and they connect it to the website that they've created in the process, and they don't have to hire anybody else to do this. Lastly, we're going to teach them finance. In this course, students are able to learn the skills that they need to actually raise money for their companies and their startups and their nonprofits. We'll teach them basic finance skills, and we'll teach them all the things that they need to know in order to make this a reality. And that's just year one. That's year one. In year two, we're going to bring kids together from all different areas in their school, from different CTE pathways and content areas, and we're going to find the best kids and put them on teams, and we're going to let them start companies. Because at this point, they have all kinds of training and skills and experience that no one else has their age, and they're going to come together and make awesome teams, and they're going to create products and services and nonprofits. They're going to change the world forever. That's what we do at Virtual Startup Academy. How is Virtual Startup Academy's curriculum different from other publishers? Well, I've done a lot of research in this market. I've done a lot of research about all the different publishers in this area and the content they provide to students and teachers across the country. I've found that not much of it has changed in the last 20 years. They're still writing long textbooks. They're still making quizzes. They're still expecting teachers to lecture about all of the things that they want students to learn. So, like I said before, we turn that completely upside down because our teachers don't lecture. Our students lecture each other and teach each other what they need to know. We are entirely project-based learning. So in project-based learning, we build the entire learning experience around students actually completing projects and tasks and things that really matter to them. We don't give them long reading assignments that they don't care about. We don't give them long summative assessments at the end of the semester that, they don't care about it as well. And what we found is that students really remember all the things that they learn in our program because it means something to them. The quizzes that students take throughout the semester to check for understanding, and the graded assignments that teachers give, and the reading assignments that kids have for homework, they don't care about any of this. I know this because I've asked them. And they don't remember it because once they've taken a test, it's over. They don't have to worry about it anymore. But at Virtual Startup Academy, the material that they learn and they teach each other, they keep for life. Because they know that this is stuff they're going to use for the rest of their adult career. So we're really excited to completely destroy the status quo in the curriculum world for this content area. No textbooks, no quizzes, no tests. That's not how we do it. What happens in our classroom is kids break down the door to get inside, and they don't stop working until the bell rings, and then we have to kick them out of the class to send them to their math class because they want to stay inside of our classrooms all day long. Students love to learn about entrepreneurship. Students love to be in charge of their classroom. And most of all, students love to do things that are relevant to them. And that is exactly what we do at Virtual Startup Academy. What kind of experience does a student have in Virtual Startup Academy? Well, it's unlike anything they've ever done in their entire educational career. This is a fact because that is the same question I ask every student who takes my class. Students are used to being talked to in the classroom, to be lectured to by teachers, to have all these fancy teaching techniques pushed upon them and just hoping that they retain the information. So the experience at Virtual Startup Academy is that of what happens in the real world. When a student goes to a job, they have a short training period, and then they're thrown into the fire. They are thrown into whatever the tasks are for that job, and they need to figure it out for themselves. A lot of kids in my class get really frustrated at the beginning because I don't answer their questions for them. I don't. What I do is I ask them more questions, and I get them to understand that they need to figure this out for themselves. And I haven't seen that in education. I haven't seen that from other teachers, and neither have students. So this experience is totally a new thing for them. And once they buy into the process, and once they buy into the fact that they're in charge and they need to figure things out for themselves, it's an amazing experience for everybody, student and teacher alike. Recently, I was in a class where the kids were frustrated because I wasn't telling them exactly how to do a presentation. I wasn't telling them exactly what I wanted on a slide and what information to put on there and how many words to put on there and all that. And they kind of united against me. And they're like, Mr. Keele, why don't you just tell us the answer? And I told them, you'll figure it out. And I went back in the classroom 5 minutes later, and they're delegating tasks, and they're figuring out who wants to do the photos and who wants to write the copy and how we're gonna organize the presentation. And by the end of the day, they had this amazing presentation that they created themselves. I didn't create this presentation for them. That experience of being responsible for the work that you produce is life-changing for students. It's life-changing for them because they're used to having everything fed to them on a cookie sheet, right? I want an essay, and I want 5 paragraphs, and here's what I want in the first paragraph, and here's what I want in the middle 3 paragraphs, and here's what I want in the last paragraph. We don't do that. You decide as the student what you want to do. You decide how you want to portray the information that you are trying to get across. And if it doesn't work out, well then you will figure out how to make it better the next time around. And that experience is not found anywhere else. Because everywhere else in education, you get a bad grade on a test, you get a bad grade on a test and you move on. You try to get a better grade next time. But we really empower students to take control and take ownership of what they're doing in the classroom. And they learn how to be effective, critical thinking adults by the time they're done. Much better than most of the adults I've come across in my experience, and they're in the real world. Because these students that take entrepreneurship from Virtual Startup Academy, they're trained to be effective real world leaders. And that's what we do at Virtual Startup Academy. What is the role of teamwork and collaboration in a Virtual Startup Academy classroom? Well, it's everything. Teamwork and collaboration in a Virtual Startup Academy classroom is the entire focus of what we do as an educational platform. Teamwork, bringing kids together, making them understand that what they can't do alone, they can certainly do together. Making them understand that it's okay to have differences. It's okay to have different ideas. But what matters in the real world is, can we pull all this together and create something insanely great that we're all proud of? Because that's what happens in a Virtual Startup Academy classroom. Kids create things that they are proud of, that they believe in, that are important to them, and they're important to the people in their community and the people in the world in general. Collaboration. Collaboration is a big term in education that doesn't really pan out the way that most educators think it does. We're not talking about talking to a kid across the classroom and getting some feedback on an essay. What we allow students to do in Virtual Startup Academy is to work together through every single aspect of a project, through every single aspect of designing a presentation, or creating marketing materials, or making videos for YouTube. What we do at Virtual Startup Academy is we connect kids from all over the place so that they can collaborate with people they've never met. And they love it. They love being able to do this. Because most kids in Southern California have never talked to anybody from New York, or Michigan, or Russia, or anywhere else. They don't know what kind of perspectives they have. And what we do is we safely connect all of these kids together. We connect the various ideas and perspectives that students have in this world, and we allow them to collaborate on these projects that they are working on, unlike any other program in education today. So that is what we believe in. We believe in teamwork and we believe in collaboration. We don't necessarily have individual assignments. We don't have individual grades. We have team members coming together to create amazing works of art that they are proud of, that they are excited about, and that they can reflect on in the future and say, I had a great time in class. I loved coming to class and working with my teammates. Because they're gonna develop a bond with their teammates that cannot be found anywhere else. I know this because I'm connected with a lot of my former students, and that is what they say. That is coming straight from the student. I loved coming to class and working with my teammates. And I know we created something awesome and amazing, and we're gonna change the world. So that's what we do at Virtual Startup Academy. What kind of skills and experience do students get at Virtual Startup Academy? Well, the most important experience they get is the opportunity to work in a team in a real-world environment. This is the core of our business model. We want students to be able to work in a business environment, in an educational environment that mimics what happens in the real world. In the real world, teams are put together and you have to figure out how to work with them. At Virtual Startup Academy, we put teams together and we teach the kids the skills to make it work. Students learn how to develop their own roles within a team. Students learn how to be contributors to this team that they're in and learn how to give feedback in a constructive way that they don't learn anywhere else. These are the skills that employers are looking for. Teamwork, collaboration. Yes, we teach a lot of business content. We teach entrepreneurial skills, we teach finance skills, we teach marketing and advertising and all that stuff. But that is not the focus of what we do. We teach kids how to work with each other so that they can become adults who can be effective learners for their entire life. We teach kids the skills that they need to be a part of a team in the real world and contribute and collaborate and work together to solve problems that they can't solve themselves. Because in the real world, as we all have learned, there are big problems. And it often requires more than one person to solve them. And in school today, nobody teaches those skills like we do. Nobody teaches the skills of how to be a leader of a team, how to get people to buy in to your vision for what you're trying to do, how to compromise, and how to integrate different ideas in what you're trying to accomplish. And that's the reason why we do what we do. No one else does this in education. No one else does this in the real world. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to give kids the advantage that nobody else has coming out of high school, that allows them to succeed and climb up the corporate ladder if they want to, or to start their own companies and have employees that care about what they're doing. Because it's one thing to own a business and have employees that hate what you do and only do it for the money. It's another thing to inspire your employees, to create a work environment that is exciting and empowering, and the things that employees want from a leader is what we teach students while they're in high school. So that's what we do at Virtual Startup Academy, and this is the place to do it. And this is the place to find what you're looking for if that's what you want to do with your life. Describe the role of teamwork and collaboration in a Virtual Startup Academy classroom. Well, in a Virtual Startup Academy classroom, teamwork and collaboration is everything. It's the foundation of everything we do. Because at the end of the day, when a student graduates from high school, that's what they need. They need to know how to work in a team. They need to know how to work with other people. So from day one in our program, they come together and they work on problems together. They do pitches for restaurants and vehicles and clubs from day one. Entrepreneurship is not about how smart am I and how much money can I make. It's about how can I work with other people to generate as much value for the world as possible and keep some of it for myself. So collaboration is something that isn't really taught effectively anywhere else in education. In our classroom, students have to collaborate on every single aspect of every project they work on. They have to work together to solve problems that they could probably solve themselves, but that's not the point. The point is, can we solve this together? Can we solve this in a way that gets us excited to come to class and proud of the work we create? Teamwork is learned in a variety of channels. I learned teamwork in sports. I learned teamwork in some classes to some extent, but it was never the focus of my education. At Virtual Startup Academy, the focus of our education is teaching students how to work together. Because when we get into the real world, that's what we need. We need to be able to work with other people to solve problems, and that's what we teach students. So for a student in our courses, they're going to learn all the different things they need to be successful in that content area. But they're going to learn from each other on how to be effective communicators and inspired learners and people who are accountable and know how to hold other people accountable, who know how to lead each other and who know how to follow when needed. Because these types of things are what students need to know. They need to know a lot of other content, but at the end of the day, being an effective member of a community, of a team, of an organization, being a leader of people, those are the skills we're trying to teach. And we just happen to use entrepreneurship as a tool to make all that happen. What kind of skills do students learn in Virtual Startup Academy? Well, we teach entrepreneurship, and we teach all of the associated content areas that entrepreneurs need in order to be successful. Students learn finance. They learn how to create websites. They learn how to record videos for advertisements. They learn how to do visual design so they can create their own ads. And they learn a ton of other various skills that an entrepreneur needs. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to teach students about entrepreneurship is how do we get it done? How do we figure out how to solve problems? Because the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee, from my perspective, is the entrepreneur is willing to take risks and is willing to figure out on their own how to get things done. And that's what we want to teach students how to do. So apart from the primary content skills that students learn, they also learn that just general skill of how to solve a problem that's in front of you so that we can make it successful. There's a lot of problems out there in the world that need to be solved, and there's not a lot of entrepreneurs to do it. There will always be growth in the job market for entrepreneurs because new ideas are constantly forming. So we want to teach kids how to envision the world as they want it to be. And we want to teach them the skills that they need in order to make that a reality. Because at the end of the day, the world needs to evolve. The world needs to progress into the future, and entrepreneurs throughout the course of history have been the ones to do it. Why not the students in our class? Why not your student? Who's the next Steve Ballmer or Steve Jobs or whatever entrepreneurs you know from the past? Because in the next generation, there's gonna be a whole set of new names. And we want those kids to come from Virtual Startup Academy. We want to give kids the ability to understand the problems of the world and how to figure out how to solve them on their own. Not with a blueprint or a textbook or someone telling them how to do it, but taking the ideas from their own mind and turning them into a reality that will change the world forever. And we're the only program in existence that focuses exactly on that single problem. And we hope you come join us. What is a student-led classroom? Well, a student-led classroom is something that teachers talk about all the time. They talk about empowering their students and getting them to take control of their learning and run their class and all of these things. But it doesn't really happen in the real world. Teachers haven't really figured out how to make this student-led classroom a reality yet. But we have. We have because I've seen it time and time again. I've seen students break down the doors to my classroom and force their way in and refuse to leave at the end. Why? Why do they do this? Because they want to be there, not because they have to be there. That's how it goes at Virtual Startup Academy. A student-led classroom is a classroom where the students take initiative, where students work together to solve their own problems. It is not a teacher-led classroom like we've all grown accustomed to in the previous century, really. It's an environment where students are empowered to solve their own problems, where students decide what they want to learn and how they want to learn it, and how they're going to go about finding the information they need to make that happen. It's about student initiative. It's about students wanting to be there, not having to be there. I get to come to class. I don't have to go to class. I get to work on these projects with my friends. I don't have to work on this project the teacher gave me. It's a complete shift in mindset that cannot be found anywhere else. In a project-based learning classroom like ours, students are working on things together. They are accountable to each other. They want to come to class because their classmates are coming to class. Their team members are going to be there, and they don't want to let them down. I had never heard that in a classroom from a student until I started working on the precursors to Virtual Startup Academy. I never had. I had never heard a student say, "Mr. Keele, can we have this class every day?" Because at my old school, we didn't have class every day. We had it twice a week. But they wanted to come all the time. And they wanted to meet on the weekends so that they could work on their projects. And I was completely blown away by this because I didn't want to do that when I was in high school. I wasn't going into history class saying, "Miss So-and-so, can I come in on the weekend and work on this project with my team?" Would not happen, ever. But it happens all the time. Because in a student-led classroom, It's about ownership. It's about accountability. Not to me, the teacher, right? But to each other. Because that's what makes a great team. I've been a football coach for 10 years. Played football for 10 years before that. A great football team is one where the players are accountable to each other, not the coach. The same is true in a classroom. When students are accountable to each other and are pushing each other to improve their learning and to find the information they need and make truly outstanding work, that's when the real learning happens. That's when kids put together things that can change the world. And that is exactly what we train kids how to do. What does it mean to give students ownership in the classroom? Well, the first question I have is, what does it mean to own something in the real world? To own a company in the real world? To own a family in the real world? It means your ideas came together and you own the creation and implementation of that project. It means that you own a percentage of a company that's worth something, that means something to you, that changes how something in the world happens for the better. It means to be a valuable part of a family unit, to be a husband or a wife or a grandparent, and something that you created. So what does that mean for a student? It means that the projects that they work on need to be theirs. They need to come from their brain. They need to have other people involved with it who also feel the same way. Students taking control of their learning environment is the most powerful thing in education without any question. Because when students take ownership of the work they're doing, they want to do it well. They want to do it insanely well. And when they're working on a team with people that feel exactly the same way, that's how we want the classroom to be. So what does it actually look like in the real world, in the classroom? Students taking ownership of their learning environment means that a teacher spends a couple minutes at the beginning of class to kind of focus everybody up. You just came from history or math or some other class, PE, whatever, and we just need to get you in this classroom. And we say, here's a problem, go figure it out. Does not mean, here's a 20-minute lecture, and then I'm going to give you this worksheet, and you just answer the questions. It's, here's a problem, go figure it out. And the students come together as a group, and they do it on their own because they want to, not because they have to. It means that when a new piece of information comes to the table, it gets discussed together. It means that when we need to find a way to do something, we talk about it. And we go out into the world and search the internet and search our resources and our friends and talk to people and figure out how to solve these problems. Because it's our problem, right? It's not the teacher's problem or the content textbook publisher's problem that they gave to us. It's our problem, right? And we're going to solve it how we want to solve it. There is no rubric for how to do this. There is no guidelines or rule book or anything to contain a student in a box that stifles their creativity. When a student owns their work products, they are excited about it. They love talking about it. They'll go home and tell their parents and their friends and their grandparents every day, this is what I did in class. We're going to change the world. What do you think? It means that when something comes up in class, I'm going to come together and we're going to figure it out. We are going to be a cohesive team because this is our stuff. I own 25% equity in this project. And there is no other project like it anywhere else in the world. Students raising money for nonprofits, they get really excited about this. I've heard a lot of personal stories about why they chose the nonprofits they chose. Nobody else in the world is doing the same thing they are. In other content areas, they're using a textbook that has a questions sheet and an answer key and a rubric, and there are 2 million other textbooks exactly like it somewhere else in the country. Virtual Startup Academy, a student's project is their project for now and for the rest of time, because no two projects are ever alike. No two groups solve a problem in exactly the same way. Students understand this, students buy into this, and students love coming to class and living this experience. How does Virtual Startup Academy prepare students for the real world? Well, let's talk about what happens in the real world first. Let's say you get a job. At the beginning of your job, your employer will give you a few days training, and from there, you have to go figure everything else out for yourself. You have to figure out how to talk to customers. You have to figure out how to solve whatever problems come your direction in this job. There might be a rule book or a handbook for certain things, but at the end of the day, it's about critical thinking. It's about thinking on your feet, solving problems. So if you're an entrepreneur, which we're training kids hopefully to become, you don't have any of that. You've got to figure everything out with nobody to tell you how to do it, using only the stuff you have in your mind and the people you have that are willing to work with you. So in the education system, we don't really teach any of this stuff until now. Now with Virtual Startup Academy, we teach kids how to do all of these things that they're going to actually use in the real world. Teamwork in the real world is essential. Very few jobs you're going to sit by yourself at your house typing into a computer and making enough money to survive. You're going to have to work with other people. You're going to have to work with customers. You're going to have to work with bosses. You're going to have to work with a whole plethora of different individuals throughout your day. And if you don't do it well, you're not going to be successful. So we give kids the opportunity, starting in elementary school all the way through high school, to learn how to do this in an environment that they can learn it, that they can grow in and learn how to be effective communicators and effective team players and all of those things. So at Virtual Startup Academy, we design our learning environment around teamwork and collaboration because the real world is designed around teamwork and collaboration. The real world requires us to think critically about problems and figure out how to solve them ourselves. There are not multiple choice tests in the real world, or fill in the blanks, or true false, or any of these things that your typical course in high school or elementary school is going to lead you to believe exists. The problems in the real world require critical thinking, and our primary focus at Virtual Startup Academy is to promote students to learn how to think critically, to learn how to solve problems on their own, to learn how to be a part of a team that takes into account different viewpoints, different ideas, different backgrounds, different perspectives, and comes up with one solution based on all of that that works for everybody. Because that's what you need in the real world. In the real world, you got to solve problems, and you've got to make sure that you're able to earn a living. As an entrepreneur, you either make money or you don't. There's no rubric for determining whether or not an entrepreneur is successful. Right? There's no rubric for determining if you're able to pay your mortgage or pay your rent or pay your car payment. You either do it or you don't. And being able to figure out how to make all of this a reality, how to make this something that happens in your life, that's what we teach kids from the start. So teaching the real world, for me and for my company, is about giving control to the kids and teaching them the skills they need to solve their own problems. Because at the end of the day, that's what they have to do for the rest of their lives. and we're going to teach it to them now. What would I say to parents out there who find Virtual Startup Academy? Well, I want you to ask yourselves, what did you need for the real world? Did your education prepare you for all the things that happened after you graduated from high school? The overwhelming majority of parents that I've come across in this business have told me that they wish they had this when they were kids. They wish they had the opportunity to work together with other people, to learn all these skills in a controlled environment, to learn about business and life and marketing and leadership. Learn about all these things while we're still in school so that when their kids graduate, they have all this ready to go. Nowhere else in education is this set of skills and experience taught. Nowhere else in education can you learn how to be a leader in a pragmatic environment that actually reinforces the skills that you need to be successful. So if you're a parent out there who's come across Virtual Startup Academy, just ask what you would want for yourself. Ask what things in your adult life do you wish you had learned before you became an adult? Take an inventory of that and go check out what we've got going on. You're going to find a lot of it in our curriculum. You're going to find a lot of it in our student experience. We did this on purpose because I created this program to fill what I wanted to have when I was their age. I created this program because I know students aren't getting it. I know and they know that the test they took in math or the book they read in English 10 years from now when they're my age, I'm not going to remember it. But they're going to definitely remember the time that they raised a bunch of money for the American Heart Association and the friends they made doing it. And they're going to remember the letter they got from that nonprofit after that nonprofit figured out what they did. All these things they're going to remember. And we want to create a learning experience where students remember this stuff for the rest of their life. So that when they start their first company at age 33, they remember that time when they created this cool little product in entrepreneurship class in high school and their teammates said, I don't think this is a good idea. And they went and did a bunch of research and thought it through and said, here's why it's going to work. Let's do it. And they got them to do it and it became a success. That's the kind of stuff students remember for the rest of their lives. That's the kind of stuff students get excited about and come to class to really take their education to the next level because that's what's important. What's important is students come together and learn to solve problems and make memories that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. And based on my experience with my former students, that's what happens. That's what happens, and they go off into the real world and they're able to do things that kids their age can't even dream of. So if that's something that you want for your kids, give me a call and we will make it happen. Thank you for your time. Again, my name is Keele. I'm the founder and CEO of Virtual Startup Academy, and I hope this information helps you make a great decision on what you want to do with your students' education. We are really excited to have you on board.